Hello everyone. I welcome all of you to YuktMind's unique initiative 10 minutes and newspaper done. Today is 8th June, that is 10 days post prelims of 2023, and I hope aspirants who appeared this year are back on their tables. And for the first timers, less than 1 year is left for 26th May next year prelims. So let's make today count without wasting any minute. We have selected 7 news of relevance for UPSC candidates. You can download the PDF of the gist from our Telegram channel or website. First news, Centre hikes Kharif crop MSPs, Rs 143 increase for paddy. The 2023-24 MSPs for 17 Kharif crops and variants were approved at a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The CCEA Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approved the hike as recommended by the Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices (CACP). As per a government statement, MSP of Kharif crops for marketing season 2023-24 has been increased to ensure remunerative prices to the growers for their produce and to encourage crop diversification. The statement also said that government has been promoting crops other than cereals like pulses, oilseeds, nutri cereals, also known as Shri Anna, by offering a higher MSP for these crops. Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, National Food Security Mission, all are encouraging farmers for diversification. You can have a look at the list of 17 Kharif crops because sometimes UPSC asks such questions, that is for which of the crops government provide MSPs. Now what is MSP? Minimum support price is the rate at which the government buys grains from farmers. Reason behind the idea of MSP is to counter price volatility of agricultural commodities due to the factors like variation in their supply, lack of market integration, and information asymmetry. Now, what is CACP? The MSP is fixed on the recommendations of the Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices (CACP), which we have already read. It is an attached office of the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare formed in 1965. It is a statutory body that submits separate reports recommending prices for Kharif and Rabi seasons. Now, there are factors based on which MSP is calculated, like demand and supply, cost of production, domestic and international market trends, intercrop price parity, implications of MSP on consumers, etc. You can read the extra details in the PDF provided in our Telegram channel. The CACP also makes visits to states for on-the-spot assessment of the various constraints that farmers face in marketing their produce or even raising the productivity levels of their crops. Based on all these inputs, the Commission then finalizes its recommendations or reports, which are then submitted to the government. The government in turn circulates the CACP reports to state governments and concerned central ministries for their comments. After receiving the feedback from them, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs of the Union Government takes a final decision on the level of MSPs and other recommendations made by the CACP. Second news, the Union Cabinet approved a third revival package for BSNL. The state-owned operator will receive via equity infusion spectrum in the 700 MHz band, the 3300 MHz band, the 26 GHz band, and the 2500 MHz band. With this spectrum allotment, BSNL will be able to provide pan-India 4G and 5G services, provide 4G coverage in rural and uncovered villages under various connectivity projects, provide fixed wireless access services for high-speed internet, and provide services spectrum for captive non-public network. Third news, cyclone may affect course of monsoon. Cyclone Biparjoy in the Arabian Sea intensified into a very severe cyclone on Wednesday. Currently located about 850 km west of Goa, it is expected to move northwards and turn towards Oman. Some scientists say that a slew of factors have combined that will likely see the Biparjoy steal considerable moisture away from the monsoon. An exceptionally warm Arabian Sea, a weak monsoon onset, and a favorable Madden-Julian oscillation conditions in the Indian Ocean are favoring this cyclone. Now, what is Madden-Julian oscillation? It is an oceanic atmospheric phenomenon which affects weather activities across the globe. You can understand it as an eastward moving pulse of clouds, rainfall, winds, and pressure near the equator that typically recurs every 30 to 60 days and is mostly prominent in Indian and Pacific Oceans. How does a cyclone affect the monsoon's onset? The impact of global warming on the monsoons can be seen in the onset, withdrawal, its seasonal total rainfall, and its extremes. Global warming also affects the cyclones over the Indian Ocean and the typhoons over the northwestern Pacific Ocean. We are seeing cyclone formations in the pre monsoon cyclone season closer to the monsoon onset, arguably due to the influence of a warmer Arctic Ocean on winds over the Arabian Sea. The monsoon is also affected by three tropical oceans: Indian, Atlantic, and Pacific. The atmospheric bridge from the Arctic, the oceanic tunnel, as well as the atmospheric bridge from the Southern Ocean. Now, what is a bridge? It refers to two faraway regions interacting in the atmosphere, and tunnel refers to two remote oceanic regions connected within the ocean. A bridge is in atmosphere and tunnel is in the ocean. Now, different cyclones' position affect the monsoon differently. Some cyclones in the North Indian Ocean have had both positive and negative impacts on the monsoon. Since the circulation of winds around the cyclones is in the anti-clockwise direction, the location of the cyclone is critical as far as the cyclone's impact on the transition of monsoon trough is considered. What is monsoon trough? It is a low pressure region that is characteristic feature of the monsoons, which attracts the monsoon winds. For example, if a cyclone lies further north in the Bay of Bengal, the backwinds blowing from the southwest to the northeast can pull the monsoon trough forward and assist in the monsoon's onset. Earlier this year, the Bay of Bengal had cyclone Mocha, which dissipated on May 15, and the backwinds from northwest to east helped the monsoon set in on time over the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The powerful typhoons like Mawar and Gukol are thirsty beasts and demands moisture from far and wide. Cyclone Mawar pulled winds across the equator into the North Indian Ocean, setting up southwesterly winds over parts of the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. Now, southwesterly winds over the Arabian Sea are welcome news. They bring large quantities of moisture onto the Indian subcontinent, whereas southwesterly winds over the Bay of Bengal are bad news for the monsoon. This complicated dance of global warming affecting cyclogenesis over the Pacific and North Indian Oceans, the warming over the North Indian Ocean and late pre-monsoon cyclones and typhoons is just another monkey wrench in dynamics of the monsoon and in the predictions of the monsoon's onsets and its evolution through the season. Fourth news is an opinion article on 22nd Law Commission of India's report on sedition. In its 279th report, the Law Commission of India has recommended the retention of Section 124A of the IPC, which contains the law of sedition. It has also recommended enhanced punishment for this offence in the name of national security. While Section 124A provides for a minimum imprisonment of 3 years, the Commission recommends a minimum of 7 years. In 2022, the Supreme Court of India had ordered a stay on all existing proceedings and also on the registration of fresh cases under sedition upon the Union government assuring the court of a review of this law at the earliest. The court's stay order was in consideration of the fact that this law was widely misused by the law enforcement authorities. Kedarnath versus State of Bihar 1962 by the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court decided the constitutionality of sedition. The court held that it is constitutionally valid for two reasons. One, sedition, though an offence against the government, is against the state because the government is a visible symbol of state and the existence of the state will be in jeopardy if the government is subverted. Second, Article 19, Clause 2 of the Constitution imposes restriction in the interest of the security of the state, which has wider amplitude and which also includes the law on sedition. However, the Supreme Court had held that Section 124A is valid but can be invoked only when the words or gestures have a tendency to incite violence. Sedition may violate the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression under Article 19, Clause 1A of the Constitution. In a democratic republic where people have the freedom to change a bad government, disaffection towards a government cannot be an offense. Fifth news is an analysis on how to transition to a low carbon city. In 2020, cities dumped a whopping 29 trillion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Transitioning to low carbon or even net zero cities requires us to integrate mitigation and adaptation options in multiple sectors. This is called the sector coupling approach, and it is necessary to decarbonize urban system. Now, why are energy system transitions important? It could reduce urban carbon dioxide emissions by around 74%. With rapid advancements in clean energy and related technologies and nosediving prices, we have crossed the economic and technological barriers to implement low carbon solutions. The transition must be implemented both on the demand and the supply side. Mitigation options on the supply side include phasing out fossil fuels and increasing the shares of renewables in the energy mix and using carbon capture and storage technologies. On the demand side, using the avoid shift improve framework would entail reducing the demand for materials and energy and substituting the demand for fossil fuels with renewables. Secondly, in order to address residual emissions in the energy sector, we must implement carbon dioxide removal technologies. Now, before discussing different strategies, we should know that there are multifarious issues of energy justice and social equity to be dealt with. There are various considerations to be kept in mind, like city spatial form, land use pattern, level of development, and state of urbanization. An established city can retrofit and repurpose its infrastructure to increase energy efficiency and promote public as well as active transport like bicycling and walking. Walkable cities designed around people can significantly reduce energy demand, as can electrifying public transport and setting up renewable based district cooling and heating networks. A rapidly growing city can try to collocate housing and jobs by planning the city in a way that brings places of work closer to residential complexes, thus reducing transport energy demand. They can also implement building codes that mandate net zero energy use and retrofit existing buildings, all while gradually shifting to low emission construction material. Energy systems are directly and indirectly linked to livelihoods, local economic development, and the socio-economic well-being of people engaged in diverse sectors. So, a one size fits all approach is unlikely to ensure a socially and environmentally just transition. How can an energy transition be just? Additional justice concerns include land disposition related to large scale renewable energy projects, spatial concentration of poverty, the marginalization of certain communities, gendered impacts, and the reliance on coal for livelihoods. For example, developing economies including Nigeria, Angola, and Venezuela owe a significant fraction of their GDP to fossil fuel exports. Similarly, in developed countries, many communities suffer energy poverty and inequity due to high energy costs, low incomes, and inadequate infrastructure. Now, what is the solution to have a low carbon city that foregrounds justice? Efforts must be directed at governance and planning, achieving behavioral shifts, promoting technology and innovation, and building institutional capacity. Efforts should also include mitigation and adaptation responses that engage multiple stakeholders in energy governance and decision making, promoting energy efficiency, scaling up climate investments, and capturing alternate knowledge streams like indigenous and local lived experiences. On November 2019, Kerala government announced that access to the internet would be a basic right in the state, becoming the first state in the country to do so. The declaration came 3 years after the UN had passed a resolution recognizing internet access as a basic human right. The announcement was accompanied by a detailed plan to ensure that it would become a ground reality with the setting up of Kerala fiber optic network through which internet connections would be provided free of cost to 20 lakh BPL families. How will the plan be rolled out? The aim was to provide internet connections to 14,000 BPL families with 100 each from the state's 140 assembly constituencies in the first phase. As of now, internet connection has been provided to 7,000 BPL families across the state. Each household will get 1.5 GB of data per day at 15 Mbps speed. In the second phase, internet services will be made available to the public at affordable rates. So, what is the road ahead? The commissioning of the first phase of Kerala fiber optics network comes a week after the Chief Minister declared Kerala as the India's first fully e-governed state. The e-office system has already been implemented in the Secretariat, District Collectorates, Commissionerates, and Directorates. Seventh news: India and the USA pledged to streamline their export control regimes for critical technologies at the inaugural India USA Strategic Trade Dialogue in Washington on June 7, 2023. Critical domains like semiconductors, space, telecom, quantum, AI, defense, biotech, and others were discussed. Now there is a change in stance of USA because USA had issued a number of statements immediately after the Russian invasion of Ukraine calling for India to reduce its military ties with Russia, forego Russia oil and vote alongside western countries at the UN, none of which New Delhi agreed to. It has in more recent months given up those demands. Thank you for watching. Let us know your feedback in the comments. Keep visiting our website, Telegram, Instagram and Twitter.